Good day, everybody. This is Lou Weiss with Manufacturing Talk Radio. Glad you're all here this week. My co-host, Tim, is under the weather, so he won't be with us today. But we do have Anthony Nieves, who's a committee chair for the Institute of Supply Management Services report. And we've been doing this now with Anthony, I don't know, 5-10 years, something like that. Your information is always great. We don't always feel good about the information, but I think today we'll do okay. So, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I remember starting out on Manufacturing Talk Radio just as an occasional guest once in a while. And I know you guys were doing the manufacturing side for quite some time. Right. And, then there's some relevancy here on the services sector.
Once you're in, we suck you in all the way. So what's the good news with the ISM services report?
Well, the good news is that we still have growth month over month, albeit we've had some pullback, some cooling off across many of the indexes, to be expected. As we talked earlier, we see that businesses levels are good. However, we're still dealing with the same constraints and impediments that have been in place for several months now. We're still experiencing, supply chain disruption, logistical challenges, labor shortages, and the ever so present remnants of the pandemic, as each variant has impacted the workforce differently. And the most recent variant, the Omicron, has definitely impacted many of the customer facing as well as other types of companies and jobs and industries within this sector. But overall, still a good report. When you look at the 56.5 composite index, it is down 3.4 percentage points, but 14 industries reflected growth. But
it's over 50.
That's right. That's right. Lou, you've always gotten that. You have always gotten that.
I got it. I don't like 51. I don't like 52, but it's still over 50. So be it.
As we're measuring that change month over month, you were so right on that.
Well, I think there are a lot of people out there in TV land here that don't know that, and that's why I like bringing it up and reminding them that as long as it's 50, you're smelling good.
Absolutely.
There are some new issues, though, that's going on that could further upset the way the world is right now. And that's primarily the Russian war on Ukraine. And there's going to be a lot of pushback in terms of economies are concerned. How do you see that affecting or not affecting ISM services?
Great question. I think that as of right now, it's been too early to have an impact on the services sector. It would be more so on the manufacturing side, but even then, still early, because think back, this data that was been collected for the month of February is going back to the 1st, and we're not too far into the conflict. There were rumblings of it early on. Have to see, maybe there'll be a resolution sometime soon. Hopefully, that would be wishful thinking, I believe. But anyway, it will definitely affect both sectors, more so upstream on the manufacturing side. Very close to, as you know, with certainly with steel, with neon, and production that comes out of natural gas and all the other resources that come out of that part of the world will impact the supply chain and the availability of goods for both sectors. And we see it driving prices up already. We had a chip shortage to start with, right? So this is going to even take it to another level. And fuel prices, as we see, even with the release of oil reserves recently, how long is that going to last? So the price of oil is just going to keep going up unless we do something else to alleviate that. Eventually, I believe that there'll always be workarounds and risk mitigation. Supply chain managers have always been very good at looking at alternate sources and supply routes and what it takes. But there's only so much to start with.
I think we're in a very, very different place today. There are things that would happen. We would get inflation and so on, and that would finally turn around. But now inflation is being caused by different things. For example, I think that the U.S. tariffs, steel tariffs to Asia and Japan and so on, adds to the inflation, because China and Japan and so on, they're not paying the tariff. We are, the American people. So we buy steel, we got to pay more for it to cover the tariffs. So there's some unusual things that have occurred that are causing the issues that we have.
What we're seeing mostly on the services side is the demand pull situation. And we're on the services side, not so much reliant on the raw materials as you see on the manufacturing. However, as you know, well, and you're well aware of, it pulls through the supply chain and winds up finished goods or service, and there's a cost factor to it. And ultimately, the consumer pays, or the recipient pays, and one factor or another, whether it's on a unit cost or on a total cost of ownership, they pay one way or the other.
Right. Well, one thing that we're not going to have to deal with is Russian vodka. I understand a good part of it's going down the drains.
Yeah, I was at an establishment a few days ago. I think it was Tuesday, and they were telling me how they were dumping all their Russian vodka. I said, well, believe you me, it's more about a symbolic feel-good thing, because it's not affecting anybody, because there's still cases of it, not only at warehouses for distributors, but just sitting there that they can keep pouring it off, and it's not going to affect anything.
Right. Right.
But I'm not, it's a good thing, a good thing is what it is.
It's a good showing support.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go down the list of some of the other items that we haven't touched on yet. Backlog and shipping and so on.
If you look at this report and you each of these indexes back to one another, and it tells a story, tells it in the sense of things are good. They're not, as you know, they're all 50, things are going well. The growth rate is there. It's not as fast as it was in prior months. In fact, this is the lowest of a 12-month cycle right now, the 12-month running here. It's matches back to over a year ago, and at 56.5, still good. Business activities down, new orders are down. One for you, and I'll get to the backlog in a minute, but employment 48.5, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
It's not because the demand isn't there. All right, people want to hire. It's just that the labor pool's restricted, and it kind of is what's happening in this whole entire sector. It would be doing even better if we had better output, if capacity was increased. As much as ever the is saying capacity has moderated, well, the demand has increased. So it's not meeting demand. We are still not meeting the demand, and that's why it's been an impediment and an obstacle for the growth rate to even be higher. So employees they're in the driver's seat right now. They're commanding higher wages. They get to pick and choose which jobs they want to go into, flexible work, working remotely, moving from more tedious work to different types of work. We're seeing that shift. To further this point, rather, look at supplier deliveries. Even though it's only a half up, still slowing. It's slowing greater than the month before. Inventories. We've had inventory replenishment reflecting month over month growth. We went from 49.4 to 50 out of contraction, yet still not up to where it would be only mid to higher 50s range. Prices, we up 83.1, very strong prices. And we know that, as we can talk ad nauseum about inflation, but we're seeing it across the board, not just on the material, but services cost as well. Backlog, look at 6.8% increase. We went from 57 4 to 64.2. Further reinforces what we've been talking along. Demand is exceeding supply. That's what it boils down to. Why we're seeing this as a little bit of a difference of where we stronger numbers this month if we had the ability to push product across service. But we had some good success as it relates to export and imports, right? And I think that's because global markets are getting better as we're getting past this whole pandemic. The variants, the 2 variants, 3 variants have kind of run their course, so to speak. Seeing hospitalizations and everything else go down globally. So the workforce will recover, the output will increase, logistics improve. But let's be realistic about it. You said it earlier before the show, Lou. We've been dealing with this all along. It hasn't changed, right? We've had a shortage of trucks and truck drivers for years before this.
That's right.
Racks, same thing. The port congestion, I believe that down the road, they're going to realize all these realize that, hey, we need to be able to deal with this in the future. We're antiquated how we do the materials handling here at the ports, and we need to increase capacity there. So I think we'll get some good changes out of this eventually.
I hope that they solve the West Coast port union issue. If you remember, they basically closed the port down, I guess, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yes.
It was catastrophic. And they may be heading in that same direction on top of all of the stuff that we have going on.
Well, it's I look at it as like what's going on in Major League Baseball right now,
Well, yeah. Yeah, you have to care about that, though. I may be wearing the yellow jacket, but I don't care about sports.
I hear you, but more about the correlation of it. It's I think negotiations, especially when it becomes between men and unions, it always drags out, and it's just becomes more rather than looking at some factual things. And look, I can get both sides of the equation for what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, the reality is you deal with things objectively and take the emotion out of it. You can get to a place faster. And unfortunately, there's a lot of saber rattle on these negotiations, and hopefully we don't see that happen. One of the things that people don't realize is that Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles are actually 2 separate areas that share a common waterway. Right. It controls a large percentage of inbound into the country. So when that gets stifled, then we feel it all across the country, not just on the West Coast.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you see coming down the road? I always like getting to this point with you and Tim Fiore about predictions and forecasts. And he has a pretty good idea about what the future looks like in terms of manufacturing. And actually, he gave it a rather long lead time continuing to go up and stay strong into 2023. And there are things that I see from where I sit that I also see that we are moving quite along in terms of new business backlog and so on, that it could very well be that it'll go into end of 22, beginning of 23. Where do you sit on that perch?
Well, I have to tell you, I feel kind of in the sense that both you and Tim have better crystal balls than I have. Okay, more clarity. But putting all kidding aside, I'm in the same boat with you guys. I think that there's been some talk. I was watching something yesterday. I was watching with Chairman Powell, and the Senate members were the committee members. How it was great that we avoided a recession I don't think that is anywhere near being going into an alternate cycle here. I think our business remains strong. I think that we still have not been able to keep up, and that's going to be ongoing right into 20. All right, I think we're still going to be playing catch up, and as long as that is going to be in a positive territory as it relates to the economy, and I see that go on, not just the balance of this year. I feel that for 18 months that we'll see some good movement for the economy.
Yeah, I do believe that's going to be the case. What are the people saying? You're the ones that you're doing the interviewing. What's
Well,
their
there's some great commentary comments that came out from our respondents. This one here came from a combination of food services, raw material shortages, wage increases, and transportation issues are still affecting our operations and pricing. I mean, that's succinctly been talking about all along.
right.
But some of the comments are touching base that 2022 is definitely going to be great for the rest of the year, better than last. Positive going forward. There's comments about employees and their companies and suppliers causing delays and with their orders. Same ongoing things. Hopefully we'll see it lessen. Again, not to be redundant, but yeah, there has been moderation, but we're also increase month over month as went up fully. I think even eventually, as we see, and less of the mask mandates, it's going to business, and capacity has been affected. Even in some of the entertainment, recreation is another area that was didn't show growth in the 18 industries, and part of that has to do what went on with the variant carried over from not just January but into February as well. So I think we'll see dissipate moving forward, and it'll open for more business.
Well, we have a large work pool flowing west out of Ukraine to have tradesmen, and I mean that's how we got into manufacturing in the first place. The 1890s, the Great Immigration. There's already 1 million people that have left Ukraine.
Oh yeah. Well, how, if you look at the history of this country, going back to the 1800s, even what was the advantage for the South in the Civil War? It was the industrialization, right? It was
right
capabilities. It wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s that shore everything. It's interesting in how you go on plant overseas and you see some of the equipment that was bought from the U.S. used in factories over there.
Yeah. So, well, it's all looking pretty good. You have any final comments before we wrap up?
Just to say that as we've been talking about all along, we're going to see this continued rate of growth. We might see a little side uptick next month, but I think once we get into the warmer months, we'll start seeing a nice pickup going forward. And I think this will continue on through the balance of the year. And it's pretty much what our respondents were talking about in the forecast.
The way we all see it, I hope it goes that way. This has been a tough two and a half years for this country, as well as others. But like you say, we are improving, we're hanging in, and it's going to continue to go and get better going forward. Anthony, thank you for being here. I'm sorry that the audio was a little choppy at times, folks, but things work when they work and they don't work when they don't work. So that said, I want to remind everybody to go to Manufacturing Talk Radio and Jacket Media Co. to see our other podcasts, or audio podcasts as we're now beginning to call it, and listen to more of good insight and news as to what's happening in our world around us. Thank you much, all. Anthony, again, have a good one. We'll talk to you next month.
Thanks for having me on the show as usual.
Yeah, very good. You take care now.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.